The story of the American elm starts happily. If ever there was a typical urban landscape of America, it would be Elm Street, USA. Streets lined with American elms, planted to create cathedral-like tunnels of shade. Artwork of Elm Street, USA shows beautiful avenues lined with trees. Photographs in black and white depict sublime neighborhoods. Color photographs define the color green itself. Americans grew up on Elm Street, USA, and cherished their childhoods living in a shade utopia. A book about the American elm is entitled Republic of Shade, for good reason. The American elm was wide-ranging, existing throughout the eastern U.S. and southern Canada. Elms grew vase-like crowns where limbs didn't branch out until well off the ground. When elms grew together, they cast a blanket of shade. American elm was the perfect shade tree. Beginning in the 1800s, American elm was planted everywhere. As the caption says, each dot represents 10,000 elms, which equals tens of millions of trees. This photo of Central Park, New York City, dates to 1870 and shows newly planted elms. An investment for the future, planting trees to beautify city parks and create shady streets. The very mission of the Arbor Day Foundation, a good thing. What could possibly go wrong? Globally, many species of elms grow across the northern hemisphere. Elms of a local area evolved with local pathogens, either fungi and/or insects. Local pathogens can coexist with trees without killing them because trees develop resistance to them. If, however, a foreign pathogen finds its way into North America, American elms would not have resistance and therefore might be wiped out. Safeguards are in place to prevent the movement of pathogens across continents, but global travel makes introduction of foreign pathogens inevitable, especially, it seems, for the U.S. In 1930, American elms began dying. It was determined that an introduced fungus was the cause of death, and its spores were spread by a bark beetle, also introduced. It became known as Dutch elm disease, DED for short, because it was diagnosed in Dutch countries earlier in the 20th century. As is common for fungus in trees, conducting tissues of the wood become clogged, effectively starving trees for water and nutrients, which slowly but surely kills them. There's nothing funny about DED, but attempts at levity show that humor applies to everything. Over the span of decades, 80 million American elms have died. Elm Street, USA has been decimated, and the chore of cutting dead trees out from public urban spaces has been ongoing. The loss of the American elm is an ecological catastrophe, described in the Republic of Shade book as unparalleled in American history. One person who lived on a street with elms spoke of living with and then losing her elms.
And on my street, there were probably about 25% of the trees were still elms. Wow. They were so tall and so majestic. And the best analogy I can say is that when they were paired on either side of the street, it was almost like a cathedral effect. The elms they're an inspirational, magical, they're really kind of a one-of-a-kind tree. Near as I can tell, I haven't been on that street for 2 years. I bet they're all gone at this point. All the elms are gone, I should say. I was there when most of them were cut down. It's not fun. It's like a surgical removal, and then what's left is just kind of a naked stump. Until they grind it out, a huge reminder of the elm tree that stood there at one time that, kind of, I think, just disappeared because of a fungus that it couldn't fight.
Pockets of American elms still exist in North America. Thousands of elms grace Washington, D.C. Tens of elms are growing in Central Park, New York City. The Central Park trees planted in the 1870s were looking good by 1894, but they died in the initial throes of DED, so today's New York trees are replantings and are beautiful all year round. Out west in Fort Collins, Colorado State University has tens of American elms at the Oval. Over 100 years old, these elms are sublime for shade. This stand is so important, elm trees made the patch for Colorado State. Additionally, hundreds of thousands of elms line streets of Winnipeg, Canada. However, the DED fungus has reached Winnipeg, so the dreaded orange dots, indicating infected trees to be removed, are currently multiplying throughout the city. Seeing healthy American elms is highly recommendable. like stepping back in time 100 years to experience Elm Street, USA. As with other ecological catastrophes, the loss of the American elm has lessons that apply to current ecological issues with at least the potential of becoming catastrophic, including global warming. It's easy to see the attraction of American elm for urban forestry, but planting just one species was taking a big chance. Called monoculture, this practice is common in farming. There are advantages to monocultures, but there are also negatives, including the risk of losing crops to an introduced pathogen. These pros and cons apply to monocultures of trees, but trees have the additional element of decades of time that would be lost if an introduced pathogen swept through a forest. A strategy to save American elms was to kill the vector that moved the spores, that is, the elm bark beetle, with organochlorine pesticides. Photos from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s are hard to fathom these days. Neighborhoods were sprayed with large clouds of pesticides aimed at crowns of trees. Not only were residents not relocated during the spraying, but children played in the spray. Direct exposure to pesticides might not have caused human health problems immediately, but some of these people probably experienced problems later in life as a result of these exposures. What did suffer immediately due to the broadcast spraying was birds. The American robin, as iconic a symbol of America as the American elm, was impacted during spraying of pesticides. A conundrum was posed. Can a cure to a problem be worse than the original problem? Yes. In modern times, geoengineering is being considered for averting impacts of global warming. Okay, but vetting is essential to ensure that geoengineering doesn't backfire. The possibility of public health and environmental effects of exposure to pesticides was brought to the fore in 1962 with the publication of Silent Spring, one of the most important books ever in environmental science. Chapter 8, And No Birds Sing, chronicled the devastation of urban songbirds due to spraying pesticides in the effort to save the American elm. Ever since Silent Spring came out, it has been debated. Fine, science is routinely subjected to intense scrutiny. Hypotheses are constructed, data are collected, treatment subjects are compared to controls. Results are displayed so as to observe real patterns without making stuff up. Prior work is consulted and cited, and manuscripts are reviewed and revised before finally being published. All good, let the scrutiny begin. However, in addition to debate over the book, the author, Rachel Carson, was attacked personally. She has been called hysterical, a woman, even a murderer. It was hard on her, but she persevered. A leading expert on Rachel Carson, Kailani Lee, spoke about who today could fill Carson's shoes.
And my answer is there isn't one. Carson was so unusual because she was not only this curious, brave scientist, but a magnificent writer, a poet. And in the course of writing Silent Spring, she became an advocate. I don't know anyone who holds those three capacities quite the way she did.
Similarly, scientists currently studying global warming are potential targets of personal vilification. Referred to as ad hominem attacks, it's good to see that fun can be made of this tactic. A common line is to deny climate science because the scientists are trying to get rich off of research grants. It's probably too much to hope that ad hominem attacks on climate scientists abate, as such attacks have been holding steady for years now. The 20th century was catastrophic for losing perfect trees, the American chestnut and the American elm. Both have been replaced by other species, so these losses are not obvious anymore. Still, spend an afternoon under the canopy of what's left of the American elm and realize that a perfect tree was lost. And resolve to act in some meaningful way to avert other ecological catastrophes from occurring.